everyone, I'm so excited for this tutorial because this is the very first time we're making a sweater on my channel. This is going to be really easy and repetitive, so go ahead and grab your laptop or go and sit in front of your TV on a comfortable couch and watch your favorite comfort TV show or movie because this project is going to take a while. Let's jump straight into the materials that you'll need. So as always, you might need a sewing needle for weaving in your ends. You'll of course need a pair of scissors, and I would also recommend having measuring tape or an inch tape. And since this sweater is 100% made to measure, you can use any yarn and hook size. However, I would recommend using a DK or medium weight yarn if you want your sweater to be slightly chunkier like I wanted mine to be. So I wanted mine to be sort of fluffy, a little bit chunky, and not too lacy. For my sweater, I used 100% acrylic yarn with one strand of mohair. You don't have to use mohair, you can just use one type of yarn, whatever is comfortable for you, and then you'll need around 300 to 500 grams of yarn depending on the size that you're making. So I would of course recommend making an oversized fit. So step one, grab your measuring tape and go ahead and get your favorite oversized sweater or a sweater that you want to use for reference. Or if you don't have a sweater that you want to use for reference, then go ahead and just use yourself. So get your measuring tape, and I want you to measure how wide you want your sweater to be. So your shoulder length would be perfect, or a little bit wider than that if you want an oversized fit. And then also go ahead and measure the length that you want your sweater to be. So from the top of your shoulders to however long you want it to be. If you do have a sweater that you really love wearing, then I would highly recommend using that for reference, because that way you will get the perfect fit. Because you don't want to spend way too much time on a project and then you don't even like how it looks on you. These measurements will be the same for the back panel and the front panel. Before we get into the rest of the tutorial, I have a very exciting package to unbox. This is Hooks and Needles subscription box. Each box comes packed with high quality yarns, exciting patterns for different skill levels, and all the necessary tools, along with a free gift to start a project immediately. So you won't need to hunt for supplies anymore, because all you need is a Hooks and Needles box where everything is curated to create a seamless crafting experience. There is a very useful magazine that includes articles, tips, tricks, guides, and additional activities, which makes it perfect for beginners and other levels that want to advance their skills. It's so fun having a new crafting box every month, and it's the perfect opportunity to learn new stitches and techniques, and it's perfect for finding new inspiration as well. As a subscriber, you'll have the flexibility to choose between crochet or knitting kits, and they also have amigurumi subscription boxes as well. You can also pause or cancel your subscription at any time without any hassle. You can start your crafting journey with Hooks and Needles by using the link in this video's description to subscribe, and don't forget to use my discount code mahum20 for 20% off your first box. Happy crafting, everyone! I'm going to start by showing you how to crochet the back panel. This is going to be just rows of mesh stitches with whatever width, height, and length that you want. So if you're using 2 strands of yarn like me, just hold them together, and we're going to start by making a slip knot. If you're using just 1 strand of yarn, the steps are going to be the exact same. So there we go, we've got our slip knot, and now we're ready to start. Now go ahead and chain the width that you want for the back panel. So I'm going to be doing a total of 99 chains. So the total number of chains that you do, you have to keep count, and then you have to make sure that this number is a multiple of 3. That basically means that this number is in the 3 times table or the 3 multiplication table, and it can be divided by 3. After you're done chaining and you've got the desired width that you want for the back panel, I want you to go ahead and chain 5 more. So I did 5 more chains after the 99 chains that I wanted originally. So whatever number you do, go ahead and do 5 more. And then I want you to count down 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And insert your hook into that 8th chain. So yarn over and go ahead and insert your hook into that 8th chain over there. So basically you count down 8 and you go into the 8th one, and then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and we're going to do our very first double crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through 2 again. That is going to be your very first mesh stitch. From now on, it's going to be really easy and very repetitive. You're just going to chain 2, and then you're going to skip 2 chains. So skip 1, 2, and you're going to double crochet into the 3rd chain. So yarn over, insert your hook into that 3rd chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is going to be another mesh stitch. Now go ahead and repeat this all the way down. So let's do this one more time together. You're going to chain 2, then skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and double crochet into the 3rd chain. And repeat, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet into the 3rd. Once again, chain 2, and then skip 2 chains. Look, this one already has a stitch in it, so this one doesn't count. You're going to skip 1, 2, and then double crochet into the third. Go ahead and repeat this all the way down, and that is going to be your first row of mesh stitches. Once you're done with the first row of mesh stitches, this is what that'll look like. Now here's how to start a new row. You're going to repeat the same steps every single time you want to start a new row. First, you're going to chain 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you've chained 5, you're going to turn your work. Now you're going to double crochet into this loop or this hole over here. So yarn over, insert your hook into that loop or hole, and then pull up a loop and double crochet. So that's going to be your first mesh stitch of the second row. Now you're going to repeat the same steps that we did in the first row. So you're going to chain 2. But this time you're not going to be skipping anything. You're just going to double crochet into the next loop. So yarn over, go into the next loop and double crochet. And you're going to repeat this all the way to the end. So chain 2 and then double crochet into the next loop. Make sure that you're not accidentally skipping any loops, and make sure that you keep an even tension so that all of your chains are the same tightness. Not that some of them are too loose and some of them are way too tight, because that can affect the shape and neatness of your work. And there we go, that's what your work will start to look like. Go ahead and continue this pattern all the way down to complete your second row. And there we go, that's another row completed. Now go ahead and crochet as many rows as you want to. So continue doing mesh stitches and rows until the back panel is the length that you want it to be. So you can make this cropped, you can make this longer, full length, whatever you want. So to start another new row, go ahead and chain 5. Once you've got 5 chains, you're just going to turn your work, and then you're going to double crochet into the first loop right over here, and that is going to make your first mesh stitch of a new row. After that, you're just going to repeat the same pattern. So you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to double crochet into the next loop, and repeat all the way to the end to crochet another row of mesh stitches. Now go ahead and repeat until once again you have the size that you want for the back panel. Once the piece is as long as you want it to be, here's how to fasten it off your work. So just end your work into that very last loop with a double crochet. After that, you can just chain 1 or 2 to make it extra secure. Leave a bit of a long string so you can use this string to weave it in later. Cut, pull, and tighten it to secure. Here's what my finished back panel looks like. Now what you're going to do next is I want you to count how many mesh stitches you have in each row and how many total number of rows that you did. So to count the mesh stitch, just count how many holes you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then after that, I want you to count how many rows you have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up. Once you're done with the back panel, you're going to have the perfect pixel grid to make for the heart. So I want you to go ahead and take all the number of rows and the number of stitches that you counted, and I want you to go to friendshipbracelets.net and go to the alpha generate feature. Over there, you can enter the number of mesh stitches that you have in every row as the width, and then the number of rows that you did as the height. Use different colors to create the heart in the center, and then you can play around with this. You can make a bigger heart, you can make a smaller heart, so you can adjust it as you want. And I will also have the pixel grid that I use in this video's description, so you can go ahead and open that up if you're doing the same size as me. And that's just about it. That's how you have the perfect pixel grid for any size of heart mesh sweater that you're making. And now we're ready to start crocheting the front panel. Once you've got your pixel grid and you're ready to start the front panel, go ahead and start it the same exact way that you did for the back panel. So make a slip knot and then chain the same number of chains that you did for the back panel. And then go ahead and start crocheting rows of mesh stitches. Now take a look at the pixel grid that you made for the heart and count how many rows of just empty white space you have before the heart starts. So for me, I have to crochet 9 rows of just white mesh stitches before I have to start the heart in the 10th row. So now just go ahead and start crocheting from the bottom up. That's what I'm doing. So I'm doing the bottom 9 rows in my pixel grid, the one that I made, and then I'll come back once I've reached the 10th row. Alright, so over here I finished up my 9th row and I'm going to be starting my 10th row. And in the 10th row, I've got this one box of pink, so that means that from now on, I'm going to show you how to switch colors and continue doing the mesh stitches with your graph. So you're going to go ahead and count how many boxes there are before the pink box or whatever color you're using. So for me, from here till here, I've got 16 white boxes. That means that I need to do 16 mesh stitches with white, and then it's going to be pink. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to start my 10th row just like normal. We're going to chain 5. And now I'm going to start counting. So that's going to be my first mesh stitch. Then I'm going to repeat the same pattern, chain 2. That's going to be my second mesh stitch. So I'm working the same way that I was before. The only difference is that I'm keeping count of how many mesh stitches I'm doing. And I'm going to stop working with white once I have 16. And there we go, I've done 16 mesh stitches. Now remember that the 17th one is supposed to be pink, so I'm going to show you how to switch colors now. I just completed my double crochet over here, so I'm going to show you how to switch. You're just going to make a little slip knot with this yarn, or whatever yarn you're using now. Then I'm going to slide the slip knot through the loop like this and tighten this. So it's basically attached. So you've got your double crochet, you've got your chain 1, and that's going to be your chain 2, like that. Now it's going to be a bit confusing because we're not going to go into this hole or loop over here. We are going to go into the top of this stitch right here. So whenever we're color switching or when we're working with the color for the heart, you're not going to work into the loops, you're going to work into the stitch itself. So to do that, you're just going to yarn over and insert your hook at the top of that stitch like that, and then double crochet like normal. I'm going to try and work over these two like that. You're going to stop working with pink because now we need to go back and do 16 mesh stitches with white again, just like in the pixel grid. So remember that one box is equal to 1 mesh stitch, and you just have to follow that along and switch colors where necessary. So I'm just going to switch back to white by making a chain. So now you've got your chain 1 with the pink, and now you've got your chain 2 with the white, and that's the color switch. You can basically go ahead and just cut the pink yarn because you won't be using it anymore. So you're not going to go into this loop because remember, this is the loop that you just worked into. So you're going to go ahead and go into the next loop. I'm so sorry, I'm trying to make this as not confusing, but I feel like I'm just confusing you guys, so I hope that the demonstrations are clear so you can understand what I'm doing. Alright, now we're just going to continue doing mesh stitches. So once again, I'm going to chain 2, go into the next loop, so we're not skipping any more loops here, and you're just going to do this all the way to the end and make sure that you have 16 mesh stitches or whatever number is on your pixel grid. And I'll meet you back here once that's done. I'm done with the 10th row, and before we move on to the next row, I am going to tie these pieces of yarn together because we don't want them to unravel, we don't want them to just come off. So I'm just going to tie a loose knot at first, and then I'm going to make the second knot a little bit tighter just to secure it in place. Now you're going to be good to move on. Go ahead and look at your pixel grid again and count how many boxes you have from the end of the row until you have your next pink in the next row. So for me, I've got 15 boxes, and then I need to do 3 boxes of pink or 3 mesh stitches of pink. So I'm going to go ahead and do 15 mesh stitches with white. And once again, we're starting in the same way. So you always chain 5 to start a new row. And I'm going to turn my work. Now I'm going to go ahead and do 15 mesh stitches with white, and then I'll meet you back once it's time to switch colors again. So here we go again. I just finished my 15th stitch, so that's just a double crochet. Now we're going to switch to the color for the hearts because the next 3 stitches we have to do them with the next color. You're just going to make a slip knot with the color that you want to switch to. Once you've got your slip knot, you're just going to put it on your hook and slide it through the other color that you were using. So then you've got your double crochet, your chain 1, and you're going to go ahead and make your chain 2. So that's what that should look like. So now you can cut the whites because we won't need it for a while. So I'm just going to snip it. And before I continue, I'm also going to tie a knot with the pink and the white together. So it's good to do this as you're working and don't leave it all to the very end because that's going to be even more frustrating and annoying and I want you to be able to just put on and try your sweater without being worried that it's gonna unravel. So just do this as you go along. Now that that's done, remember that every time you're working with the color for the heart, you have to work into the stitch. So we're not going to be working into the loop. We're going to be doing one stitch here, and then one stitch here, and then the third stitch over here. So depending on how many boxes you have in your pixel grid, that's how you're going to do it. 1, 2, and 3 like mine, or more if you have them. So let's go ahead and work with the pinks. I'm going to yarn over and go into the stitch. And I'm going to double crochet like that. And now I'm going to chain 1. So when we're working with the pink, there's a lot to remember. So you're not going to chain 2, you're just going to chain 1. And then you're going to go into the next stitch. So that would be that pink one that I did at the beginning. There we go, and I'm going to chain 1 again, and I'm going to do my third one into the next stitch here. And there we go, that's the next step all done. So we're going to switch back to white and make a slip knot with the color that you want to switch to. You're going to slide it onto your hook, and then you're going to slide it through the color that you were using before. Go ahead and cut that color. You don't need it anymore. And before you continue, don't forget to tie a knot just to secure everything in place. So you've got your double crochet, you've got your chain 1, and we're going to make your chain 2. And now we're going to continue like normal. So you're not going to work into this loop because you already worked into this mesh stitch technically. So you're going to be working into this next one over here. So yarn over, go into the next one, and double crochet. There we go. We are all done with the color switches for this row. So go ahead and continue like normal. Chain 2, go into the next loop, and double crochet, chain 2 again, double crochet into the next loop, all the way down. Already started the next row, so for this next one I have to do 14 stitches with white, and then I have to do 5 with pink. So I'm going to do 14 and then show you how to color switch again. And as we're doing the color switches this time, really try to pay attention to what steps we're repeating, so after this you can continue on your own. It's going to get much easier with a little bit of practice. All you have to do is count how many boxes you have, and that's how many stitches you have to do. I'm going to try to go really slow so you can learn the steps with me. So after you're done with your 14th stitch, you just have to finish the double crochet. Don't chain 1 or anything. Just go ahead and grab the colors that you want to switch to. Step 1 is to just make a slip knot with the colors that you want to switch to. Once you've got your slip knot, I want you to put it on your hook like that and just tighten it if you need to. Then tighten the previous color as well. Now go ahead and slide that slip knot through that loop over there. So now you've got your double crochet, you've got your chain 1, and you're going to make your chain 2 with the color that you just switched to. There we go. Now you've started your color switch. Before you continue, go ahead and cut off the yarn and then tie a knot with the ends to secure them in place. Please don't forget to do this before you move on. You can do a double knot, you can do a triple knot, whatever helps you feel like your work is secure. Once that's done and your work is secure, you're ready to start working with the color switches. Remember that the color switches have to be worked into the tops of the stitches, not into the loops. So you're not going to go into these holes, you're only going to be working into the tops of the stitches every time you're working with the color for the heart. So let's start with the first one. Remember that we have to do 5 boxes of pink, so that means 5 stitches with pink. So I'm going to go into the first stitch, and that's going to be my first stitch like that. So one more rule, when you're working with the color for the heart, don't chain 2, just chain 1. Now double crochet into the next stitch, so I'm going to go into the next one. Once again, I'm going to chain 1 and go into the next stitch. Chain 1 again, go into the next stitch. So now I've done 4 stitches and I need to do 1 more. So chain 1, go into the next stitch. Now looking at my pixel grid, I have to do 14 stitches with white again, so I'm going to switch to white. So to switch, once again, you finish up your double crochet and you make a slip knot with the color that you want to switch to. Put it onto your hook and tighten if you need to. Then go ahead and slide that slip knot through the previous color that you were using. You can go ahead and cut. Chain 1 with the new color that you just attached. Before you continue, make sure that you double knot to secure these ends in place so that they don't unravel. So you've got your double crochet, chain 1, chain 2. Now go ahead and skip this loop over here because remember this one technically counts as the loop for this. So we're going to work into this next one over here. So don't forget that step as well. And there we go. Now continue like normal, chain 2, go into the loop, chain 2 again, go into the next loop, and continue all the way to the end of your row. And there we go. Those are the steps that you're going to repeat to continue crocheting the heart, and you should already start to notice it forming like that. The next steps are pretty repetitive. Go ahead and crochet the rest of the heart the same way, and if you need to, just rewatch the parts of color switches. The only difference is that the number of pink stitches increases and the number of white stitches decreases. There's no other difference. I'm almost done with my heart, and I wanted to do the next row with you because I know it can get confusing once you reach this part where you have to switch from pink to white and then back to pink again. So we're going to do this together. I'm on this row over here and I had to do 10 stitches with white, which I just did, and now I have to do 5 stitches with pink, and then 3 stitches with white, and 5 stitches with pink, and then another 10 stitches with white again. I already started the new row and I did 10 stitches with white. So over here I'm going to be switching to pink. So I've got my double crochet and we're going to be repeating the same steps that we do for switching colors. Once that's done, I'm going to be making my 5 stitches for the heart. So remember that when we're working on the heart, we insert our hook into the stitches. We don't go into the loops. So I'm going to do my first double crochet, chain 1, then my next double crochet, chain 1. Now I'm doing my third, chain 1 again. That's my fourth, chain 1, and this is my 5th and last double crochet with pink for now. So that's what it looks like. I'm making the curve of the heart at the top. And now we need to switch back to white because I need to do 3 stitches with the white. So I'm going to put the white on my hook. Same exact steps as before. I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 and then switch back to pink. And once again, I'm still just going to work into the stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1, work into the next stitch, and chain 1, work into the next stitch again. And now I'm going to switch back to pink. So that's the middle part. I did the same thing for this row over here. So I just worked the white into the stitch and not into the loop. So that's how it looks a little bit neater. Now I'm doing the rest of the 5 stitches with the pink. So chain 1, go into the next stitch, chain 1, go into the next stitch. So same thing that I did on the other side. And once that's done, we've got one more color switch. So these last few rows for the top of the heart will have a lot of color switches. All right, so that's done. Now I'm just going to skip this loop over here and go into the next loop and work into there. Just too many ends. And for the rest of the row, remember that when you're not working on the heart, you don't have to go into the stitch. So for the rest of the row, I'm just going to be working into the loops. And you can keep count to make sure that you're not accidentally missing a loop. So just count the number of boxes in your pixel grid and make sure that you do the same number of double crochets or the same number of mesh stitches for the rest of the row. Now that I'm done with the heart, I'm only working into the loops and doing the mesh stitches like normal. I'm going to do 9 rows of just mesh stitches with white, just like I have in my pixel grid. So I'm not working into the stitches anymore. I'm only working into the loops and repeating the same pattern that we did at the bottom empty part over here. For the next part, we're going to be making a little section for the shoulder because our shoulders aren't like completely stick straight. We have a little bit of a curve around them. So that's why, to account for that small curve, we're going to be making 3 to 4 rows of mesh stitches just to build that length. And you can do this directly from the front panel, so you don't need to fasten off or anything. I'm going to make this very small section on the side of the shoulders just 5 stitches long. So I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mesh stitches, and I'm going to start the next row So I'm going to chain 5 and turn my work and go ahead and do another row of mesh stitches. This is an optional step. You don't have to make these rows if you don't want to, but I think it would definitely help your sweater fit better. And now I'm at the end of my row over here. I did it the same way that we did all of the other rows. Now I'm going to go ahead and chain 5 and do maybe one more row. So I've done a total of 5 rows and I think that should be good. I still haven't tried on anything yet, so I don't know what it's going to look like, but you can do more or less rows depending on how wide your shoulders are. But I think anywhere between 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 should be good. Now I'm just going to fasten this off, so I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to leave a long string so I can weave this in and hide it later. And we're done with the first side. Now we have to repeat the exact same thing on the other side. Everything's getting really messy, but I'm just gonna start by pulling up a loop. So we're just attaching the yarn in place. And I'm gonna chain 5 to start a new row like we always do. And then I'm going to double crochet back into the same loop, and that is going to be my first mesh stitch. Now you have to do the exact same thing that you did on the other side. So on the other side I did 5 mesh stitches and 5 rows, so that's the same thing that I'm going to do here. I'm going to do 5 mesh stitches and I'm going to do 5 rows. So go ahead and repeat the same thing on this side as well. And there you go, that's what the finished piece should look like. That's your front panel all complete. The next step is to sew everything together, so go ahead and get your plastic needle and attach your yarn to it with a double knot. We're going to start by attaching the shoulder sections to the corners of the back panel. So that's my back panel over there. We're going to sew this part together and we're going to sew this part together over here. Once that's done, you're going to measure how big or how long or how wide you want the sleeves to be, and then you're just going to mark it. So you're going to fold the front panel and back panel and make sure that they're lining up. Then you're going to sew from down all the way up till where you want the sleeves to start. So I think I want my sleeves to be all of this part over here. So you're only going to sew from the bottom till this part or till wherever you want your sleeves to be, and the rest of it will just be open like this for the sleeves to, you know, go round and round. So here's a really quick sewing demonstration. It's really easy, so don't worry. This is my shoulder section and this is the back panel. Just go ahead and grab your needle and put it through all the way to the end and then tie the end into a knot to secure it in place. And I'm going to double knot it. There are so many different ways to sew, so if you don't use this technique, go ahead and use whatever technique you use. You don't have to do it exactly the same as me. After that, I want you to line up your work. So each mesh stitch should be aligned to the one that corresponds to it. So this one and this one, this one and that one. You're just going to sew them together. So I like going through the chains and then I'm going to go through the stitch. So I go through the chain and the stitch, the chain and the stitch until I reach the end. And that's basically it. You're sewing. So I'm just going to join this all the way to the end over here. You can also just go through the mesh stitches like this and then go through the stitch. So it doesn't really matter what way you do it. Once you're done sewing, this is what the back part should look like, and then when you flip it over, you should have a neater edge on the front. Once you're done with that, you can just weave in your ends. So to weave in your ends, just go through the random stitches, through them like that, and pull to just hide the ends. After that, you can cut the extra yarn and then go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side as well, so you can join the top part together. So next we're going to start by making the sleeves. I'm going to show you how to do this. This is work directly into the space that you left for the armholes. You don't have to do any other extra steps. So I sewed from here halfway up the front panel and I left the top half open. So you will need to try it on and see if it's a comfortable fit for you. So just leave this open and we are going to be working in rounds all the way around and round to make the sleeves. Turn your sweater inside out, and now this is the top shoulder part, and this is the bottom of the armhole, and this is where we're going to attach our yarn and start crocheting. So go ahead and grab your yarn and into any one of the mesh stitches. So I'm going to go into this one. If you can hear the kids in the back, I'm so sorry. They're just having a play date. You're going to insert your hook through the loop and just pull the yarn through it. And then we're going to tie a knot to secure this in place. And now we're going to pull up a loop. So you're just going to grab the yarn, bring it up, and chain 5 to start. 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to skip these, so don't do anything into this part over here. Just go into the next loop to double crochet right over there into that next loop, and that's what that'll look like. And there we go. Now we're going to repeat the same pattern. So we're going to chain 2 and then double crochet into the next loop and repeat this all the way around. Chain 2, double crochet into the next loop. So you're going to be working all around the armhole until you come back to where you started. So make sure that you're not accidentally skipping any loop, and make sure that you're doing a double crochet into each of those loops and keep count. And do this all the way around until you come back over here to where you started. Once you're done, this is sort of like the tricky thing to remember. You have to make sure that you don't go into the loop, or basically don't go into the last loop, because that's where your double crochet is connected. So since your double crochet is connected, it technically counts as the stitch. So what you're going to do to end the round is just go into that very first mesh stitch that you made and slip stitch like that. So that's how you're going to end the round. Now you're going to repeat the same steps to start and end the round. So to start a new round, you're going to chain 5, 4, 5, then you're going to turn your work this way, and you're going to double crochet into the very first loop, just like how we start a row. And then after that, you're just going to repeat the same steps. So you're going to chain 2 and then double crochet into the next loop, chain 2, double crochet into the next loop, and you're going to repeat this all the way around. So I went all the way around, and now I'm back here, and once again I'm going to show you how to end the round. So this is the loop where I just double crocheted and I chained 2. Now usually you'd go into this and then you chain 2 and then end your round, but what you have to remember is that don't work into this last loop, because your previous chain 5 is the stitch of this loop, if that makes sense. But basically, don't put anything into this last loop. You're just going to have your chain 2, and you're going to insert your hook into the chain 5 space, or that loop over there, and you're going to slip stitch to end the round. And to start a new round, you're going to chain 5 and turn your work. Then you have to double crochet into the same loop right there. And that's how you end a round and start a new round. Then you just continue doing mesh stitches, making sure that you're not accidentally skipping a loop all the way until you reach all the way back around. Now you have to make sure that the number of mesh stitches in every round remains the same. So I would recommend counting how many mesh stitches there are. And for the first couple of rounds, just make sure that the stitch count remains the same. I went ahead and did a total of 30 rounds for my sleeves, and I'll put the measurements up on screen. You can even find a measurement guide in the written pattern that's linked in the video's description. But once you're done with the rounds and you're ready to end your work, just go ahead and chain 2 and then grab your scissors, cut the yarn, pull, and tighten to secure, and then you're all done with the sleeves. And you can go ahead and repeat this on the other side. I already did that, so I'm going to move on to weaving in my ends. So for this, I've got my needle, and I'm just going to secure the yarn on the needle with a double knot. Once that's done, I'm just going to take the needle and I'm going to thread it through all these loops, like really randomly. So I'm just going through wherever my needle fits and pulling it through. And I'm going to do this all the way down until there's only a little bit of the yarn left. And then I'm just going to cut off the extra yarn, and then you're all done.